provide a way for the public to provide public comment during the meeting. So there we are. Welcome to our virtual meeting. So how about, why don't we get started with our roll call?
All right, so let me start with that. So I'll start with Ron Harry.
Here.
Present. Kerry Bush is excused, so as he's within the conflict of radius zone. Same with Gregory Beal. Next we have, let's go with Christine Lovell. She's currently not here. And next we have Vice Chair Lars Langberg.
Here.
And lastly, we have the Chair, Ted Luthen.
Here.
All right, so that's 3 out of 5 of the, or 3 out of 6 of the board, with one of them being an alternative or alternate. Sorry, I can't speak today.
That's all right.
Which means that we do have a quorum with 3 of the 5 mandatory board members, or 3 out of 5 of the non-alternate board members.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Let's see, let's move on to our approval of minutes from our November 4th meeting. That was our meeting where we looked at our facade improvement programs. Fairly short meeting, brief minutes. Anybody have any comments on minutes?
No comments.
No comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
Sure, I'll move to approve the minutes as submitted.
All right, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, since you're the only other person besides me. All right, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Thank you all. Let's move back to our agenda. Planning Department update on matters of general interest.
All right, so we'll have a couple of updates. First, I want to let you know that the parklets are in and they have all been adopted. So pretty shortly, we're going to start seeing them decorated and kind of made a little bit more lively. So that's the first one. The next update is that DRB applications to be on the board are due tomorrow. So if you haven't submitted yours yet, please do. Currently, we only have 1 application from a sitting board member. So we encourage you guys to submit, or anyone who in the public who is interested.
How many seats are open, Alan?
So we have a total of 3 seats open.
Okay.
And I believe we're anticipating at least 1 other application.
So that's for Ted and Carrie and
Greg.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, and one other thing I do want to touch on today is that this meeting is not discussing the Windwork project as part of the agenda. So if anyone here is for that, that meeting will be tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I just want to state that early. And that concludes the Planning Department updates.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff on that?
Nope.
All right. Do we have anybody from the public that wants to make a comment on anything not on our agenda?
All right, looks like we have 1 public comment from Kyle Fabo. So I'm going to unmute you now. All right, Kyle.
Sounds good.
Sebastopol claims to be a pedestrian and bicycle-centric community. In fact, the word bicycle is mentioned in a total of 106 times within the document of the general plan. So as I continue to research a proposed housing development on Bodega Avenue, a road that is critical in need of both maintenance, repair, and upgrade to accommodate both pedestrian and vehicular traffic, I find Municipal Code 17-110-30, the schedule of off-street parking space requirements. I'm unaware of when this municipal code was last updated, but as it currently is written, it does not seem to reflect our community values of non-vehicular traffic, or non-vehicular focused housing that resonates within the general plan. The proposed Bodega development consists of 84 units, and based on this municipal code will require 150 parking spaces. 150 parking spaces does not suggest housing that is either pedestrian or bicycle focused. Across the country, municipalities are recognizing that existing parking requirements that promote 1 vehicle per person are a self-fulfilling prophecy. With the changing dynamics and the de-emphasis in vehicle-centric housing, it's likely time to change the municipal code to one that accurately reflects our values as a community. Our municipal code should reflect our priorities. It's my hope that this body can seek for revision of this code. Any development of a transit line or a bicycle network, any development on a transit line or a bicycle network should by default have a reduced amount of required parking spaces. I'd like to then switch gears and direct your attention to my virtual backgrounds that I am currently displaying. Speaking of bicycle networks, it's my hope that Bodega Avenue will soon see bicycle lanes that are effective and safe. I'd like to take a brief moment so these 3 slides that represent first the current layout of Bodega Avenue with lane sizes and lack of any bicycle lanes. The second one shows the scenario in which bicycle lanes could be squeezed into the existing roadway, however, likely not as inviting to bicyclists based on current traffic conditions. The third scenario is one that actually promotes the use of bicycle and pedestrians by actively segregating this transportation away from the vehicular traffic. I encourage this body to explore the use of protected bicycle lanes whenever possible moving forward.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public have anything to say on items not on our agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our regularly scheduled items. We already talked about statements of conflict of interest. I don't think anybody's here with a conflict, or they probably wouldn't be here since we only have one item on our agenda. So let's get to our main thing, the 6950 Burnett Street delivery.
All right, so thank you for the introduction. So this is a return of a continued item, 6950 Burnett Street, which was reviewed by the board in May of this year. So at the prior meeting, the board was supportive of the concept, but had requested several modifications to the design, including some of the following points. The building should be completely transformed as opposed to being dressed up. More detail and articulation is needed. The corner at Main and Burnett should be bolder and stronger instead of being kind of soft and not as strong of a design. The dark color should be modified as it makes the building recede rather than making it stand out. The applicant should look into agricultural architecture for inspiration of this building, given our history and the roots in the county. And that the reclaimed wood may be a little bit too much and is typically used for accents. And lastly, the last comment I commented on here is that the alley feels like a back entrance when it should be more prominent. This isn't all the comments that are made at the meeting, but it's just a general summary. I felt it captured the main points fairly well. So the applicant has been working on revising the project for quite some time now and addressing these comments. And I believe that they have done this by utilizing a new material palette, such as eliminating the reclaimed wood and the dark paint on the ground floor. And they've now, by changing their material palette, they're now utilizing brick cladding, smooth stucco, and a clear stained cedar in the building. And part of the influence of this design comes from a historic photo the applicant had found of a former building on the site. That was a library and feed building. The applicant took several of the elements from this prior building and incorporated into the current design, such as the brick facade, the archways, and they've also utilized part of the historic name in their current proposal, as they're now proposing to call it the library or library. Not sure on the pronunciation. Some of the significant changes to the building, besides the material changes, involve the incorporation of the elevator tower into the building. At the previous review of this application, the elevator tower kind of stuck out of the building. It was more of a prominent feature. And and they've also added a third room on the room on the third level, and a significant roof form kind of encapsulate this new incorporated elevator tower and this multi-purpose room on the third floor. And the incorporation of this roof form helps add aesthetics to the building and helps draw the eye up the building. So when you're looking at the building, you kind of follow the building upwards. So this roof form conceals the elevator tower by incorporating it into the building. Well, yeah, I already got that. But one thing to know about this roof form and the elevator tower is that it does exceed the height limit by more than 5 feet. The code does allow for the buildings to exceed the height limit and over between 5 and 10 feet, but there are certain criteria that has to be met, such as the areas exceeding the height limit cannot exceed more than 15% of the roof area, and that the board needs to find that the feature is necessary for a compelling practical reason or if it would significantly enhance the building aesthetics. The applicant came up with a creative solution to meet the 15% roof area requirement, and that the portion of the roof above the multi-purpose room has a flat roof, which keeps it at the 40-foot height limit. whereas the sides of the roof go up, kind of giving it the aesthetic that the roof continues the full length of the, essentially of that building and the elevator tower, or of the enclosure covering the elevator, which kind of gives it a complete and full appearance from the ground floor, essentially from the street elevation. Overall, staff finds that the elements exceeding the height limit are consistent with the 15% of the roof area requirement, and that I believe it's like 14.5%, and that it enhances the building aesthetic and has a practical reason in that it's the roof forms at that height in order to incorporate the elevator tower into the building and to essentially have a complete roof form appearance. So staff believes that this project has significantly improved from the previous iterations, and that it is a high quality project, which is compliant with the general plan, zoning ordinance, and the Sebastopol downtown plan, as well as the design review guidelines as demonstrated in the written staff report. Lastly, I do want to note that the applicant had requested to submit the lighting, signage, and landscaping and art as a deferred submittal to be reviewed by the board at a later time. However, they have provided several conceptual plans for the lighting, signage, and landscaping at this time, which are really for reference for the board to kind of help provide a complete picture of the proposal. So with that, that would summarize my staff report. And if the board has any questions of me, please let me know. Otherwise, I believe the applicant is present and is here to, it's present. Sorry, I really can't speak today.
That's all right. Thank you for the report. Any questions of staff from our board members? All right. I had a couple. So this is not preliminary review. This is a designer review application. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that was stated that way. And then you just mentioned that the signage landscape was in this package just as a reference, future reference, not for taking action on.
Correct. So the applicant just wanted to kind of, I think at the last meeting, there was some requests of the board to kind of, they wanted to see the fuller picture and have the more complete understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And the applicant hasn't fully finished those details yet, but wanted to at least let the board see the direction that the design is going in and how those would be incorporated, how those elements are being incorporated into the design.
Yeah, so we could kind of take that as almost as a preliminary review sort of thing and give some comments about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To see how that might shape up as it moves forward. Great. Thank you very much. Seeing no questions for staff, does our applicant have something to say? Want to make a presentation?
So I believe, yep.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hi, everybody. Yes, it's good to be back. And I'm Grace Meeks. I am the lead architect for this project. And I want to just introduce the rest of the team here. They're here in case there's questions that they can answer. We've got Kate Godey, if you can just, she's our structural engineer. Amanda Molson, she's our interior designer.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Jen Klein is our creative and marketing director.
Hello.
And Becca Lipsky is our financial and business manager.
Also, I unmuted your team just in case they want to comment at any point, or they have the ability to unmute themselves.
Thank you. So as Alan mentioned, and as we can remember back in May, you guys had a lot of comments, and a lot of them had to do with kind of that tower that we presented, and the tower and its relationship to the building and the overall massing of the building. Alan mentioned that corner. There were a lot of comments on the corner and just kind of the overall architecture. And I just want to say we heard your comments. We really took them to heart. And as we developed this redesign, one of our goals was to make sure that this project one of the goals of this project was to maximize the improvements, usability, and resilience without having to tear it down. So we've taken your comments, our goal, and we really feel like we have transformed this building now. I don't think it feels like it's just dressing up the existing. We really transformed the building. We feel like we've improved the massing. Even Alan kind of referred to it in his report. The existing massing, as you know, is kind of horizontal, and kind of stagnant, and we really feel like what we've done is kind of created a little more movement to it. We kind of pull it upwards. With the brick, it moves up. With the very, very low slope, but a sloped roof, we just create more dynamic building, something that we feel is much more appealing. We feel like this redesign really integrates our new features and the existing feature better than our last design. You talked about entries, and we feel like we've really created identifiable entries. Our areas, the brick that moves up, that's identifying the entry. We feel like it really will invite people in. You mentioned this corner, and you know, we did not put our entries on the corner. We really feel like that corner of this particular building can be very useful as this community space, so that people walking by will look into this porch area. They'll be able to see the people inside in the activity, and the people inside will be able to look out at the community and see it. But what we do feel strongly about is that this building creates a really strong corner and foundation for the block and for the city. Now we feel like we've done a blending of the past and the present and the future. As Alan said, and as you saw in your drawings, we uncovered this photo from the late 1800s of this original building, and it really became an inspiration for us. It was, and as you know, because of the name of the building and the floor names, it really was an inspiration for our marketing team as well. And it really helped us develop the two together. So our height that has resulted from all of these configurations, the third floor, this tower change where we have a wider entry. We've also, as a result of us trying to, we've put a very low clearance between our existing structure and our new structure. On the drawings, you saw that in the sections. We gave you a sheet, I think it was A6.2, where it clearly defined what was keeping us. So we've got our existing structure, our new structure over it, and we've kept a very minimal distance there. And then if you move to the front where our elevator clearance, the shaft clearance, the height on that third floor is, and our structure is just above that. We feel like our structure is important for our feature and for the feel of the building. And so we feel like we have successfully kept this project within the height adjustments allowed. Thank you, Alan. Are you
Yeah.
hearing everything? Yeah. Thank you.
And it's number 3 is the one that you wanted, or is it number 2? I can zoom in a little
Yeah,
bit.
this is the page that that offers some information on. We've got kind of our existing right here, and this is the point where we are. This is that first point where our new and our old structure kind of hit, and that's that detail that's below. The detail that's right in here is that detail.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. You're great. And so we've kind of kept it a very minimal on how close we are. And we've had our structural engineer, she's here with you, but she went through a scenario and did some sizing for us. These are not final numbers as far as final sizing of our structure, because we've got a long way to go before the building permit, but we did get some preliminary sizing, and so that's what this represents. On the right side, on the left side here, you see we've got our maximum height is the 13.8 for our clearance, and we have this this glulam dying in right above that. So that's kind of our components that we wanted to share with you on what really set our building height.
Right.
So let me just move on now to just real quickly on the materials and the colors. And again, Alan's mentioned all this, but I wanted to kind of, you know, we heard you before at the beginning when you talked about how our that stucco, we had a dark color, and and it was on the base floor of the original one, and it was it was not right. It was kind of, that was our primary focus, and we totally understand. So we still have the stucco, and as you see here, we still are using a dark color, but on this design, it is very intentionally in the background. And while yeah,
Sorry.
you can see these. So these are the images that were in progress, and the other images that you received were the more final documents, the final images. But what we're now doing is using the stucco as the background, and it's the background for the other two materials, the cedar and the brick, which are much more textual and stand out. So our brick, we feel like, pays homage to the past and creates this really strong base. And our cedar siding is a mixed grain Western red cedar. And it, as you see in the other images, and even in these, there's going to be some variation in the cedar, but nothing like what we had shown before, which was a mixed species and mixed size and everything. So this should be a lot more consistent, but still have that really warm feeling and inviting feeling. As you see, the cedar comes down to the first floor, the brick starts to move up. So as I said earlier, it's integrated. We feel like the materials are integrated. So that's really all I was going to kind of address. The other things I was going to clarify was the whole idea of our supplemental packages. You'll see on the other 3D drawings that we sent you, we do have some of the signage shown that we are proposing, but again, that's for a later time as far as your comments. But I think you mentioned you might give us some pre-comments now, which would be great. And the landscape on the 3D model, we're trying to just show you a sense of where it is, but we also feel like the building stands on its own. And the other thing I did want to say before I end is that we also feel like in the report, it wasn't mentioned, but in the report, there was comments about the live entertainment. And we just want to make sure that you understand the success of this building is not dependent on live entertainment. So with that, I don't have any other comments right now. I look forward to your comments, and we are all here to help answer questions if you have any questions. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Any questions of our applicant?
I've got a few questions. I also just texted Christine, and she's going to join us in a couple minutes.
Oh, sounds good.
Racing back to her office.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, all sorts of a variety of questions. In your brief, you talked about a former very successful business on this site. Is that the livery, or is there something more current you're referring to in that? I don't think of that building as having a successful feel to it in the almost 20 years I've been here, but so I was just curious what that was.
I'm sorry, I don't remember saying that specific thing. What I had used the word successful in the sense of us when we were in relationship to keeping the height within your adjustments that are allowed. But as far as the livery was just an inspiration from a long ago, the original photo we found. So I'm sorry if I spoke inappropriately there. Now I wasn't referring to any kind of business that was specifically successful.
Okay, that's
although this building our building, of course, will be very successful.
Of course.
What? We would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's references to beverage services on the upper floor that serve the food services down below. Is that like there's a bunch of bars upstairs, or is it just where the back of a house where you got beverages stored? I didn't quite understand that.
Right now we have an area in the second floor area that should I screen share mine? Would that be a good way to show this?
Yeah, I'll make you a
Yeah.
co-host. You can screen share. Sorry about that. You should be good to share now, Grace.
All right, let me see if I just to help clarify what you're asking. We don't expect to have, there's not going to be a lot of bars everywhere or anything like that. We think there'd be a beverage service of some point, and we anticipate that there might be something in this general area.
Okay.
And then on the top floor, let me kind of clear this out. And let me just show you what we are showing up there. We anticipate that if you know, this area on the third floor, it will be, it's kind of like a banquet hall that's part of a restaurant. Or you know, when restaurants have large rooms, this would be it. It just happens to be upstairs. And what we're showing is this kind of small little area in here that's kind of a makeshift bar area that could maybe serve, whether it's beverages, whether it's alcoholic or not. It just is that kind of type. So there's not a lot of bar service, but it will be, but that type of thing will probably be part of this.
Sure.
We work toward that. Let
Okay.
me stop sharing.
Um,
Did that answer your questions, Lars?
Sure, that's fine. I'm just trying to understand some of the language you're using throughout the building programmatically. So then you have a co-working space you're proposing upstairs. Is that like I would sign up for a certain amount of hours a month or something and go in there and plug in? It's not for someone just to walk in with their cup of coffee and sit down and work, or what's your sense of that?
You know, I think I'm going to let Jen or Becca, would one of you like to take that question just to give a little sense on what that might look like?
Yeah, I could take that question. Hi, my name is Jennifer Klein. And the co-work would be a variety of options. It'll be anywhere from a monthly membership where there's dedicated desks for people to show up every day and work as a office. They'll also have day passes. Maybe somebody who buys food at the food hall can go up and use the co-work for a couple hours. Yeah, so it'll be a variation from day passes to monthly passes to maybe, you know, permanent.
Okay.
And also, if you don't mind, the food related vendors throughout the building would also be using that as their office space. And the outdoor areas would be open to the public. The outdoor, you know, someone could get a cup of coffee downstairs and then come up to the outdoor patio on the second floor or the third floor during the day.
Right, that was going to be my next question. So that is it completely public space? Like I could walk in there and not buy anything from your food vendors and go up to a deck just to enjoy the view?
As of right now, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the current plan. We want it to be accessible for the community.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. And then I just had a couple sort of architectural questions. Between your grid lines 3 and 4, it's very clear on the rendering. There's this, instead of an opening into a you know, with a garage door, there's just a very blank gray wall. And so behind that is a tenant space, I think, but you're just choosing to make that a kind of blank wall in the design.
So I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure where we're
To
referencing.
the left of your giant entrance.
Yeah, tenant space 5 on the south side.
Oh, so on the south elevation, we've got two doors, and then we've got a space that's the tenant space behind. Yeah. So, and your question is, why is that?
You're just treating that as a blank painted wall for the south facade.
That's correct. Part of that, what's behind that wall, part of it is a fire extinguisher closet.
Mhm.
And part of it is part of that that area for number 5, for that fifth little stable, as we're calling them.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that's there's a lot of yes. So that's correct.
Will there be signage on that, Grace? I can't remember.
Yeah, and that's what our elevations, I believe, show, is that that's the potential place for kind of, we're looking at some signage that's going to go there that will give some logos and some information about who all's in it.
Oh,
It's
that's
one of our few locations that where we have a kind of a space like that.
Mhm.
You'll see where we've got other, on our elevations, you'll see where we are locating other signage components, but yeah, that is absolutely where we will utilize it.
I see that. Yeah. Okay. I see that now. Thank you. And then just a question about railing. So you gave us a nice pizza box of samples, of material samples, and there's a perforated metal sample, which is called out as the railings, but all the railings and the drawings and the renderings look just like horizontal, rods or bar or whatever.
So we've got two railings. We've got a steel tube railing, and we've got some railing that will be, this mesh will be also used as part of it. So you'll see on the elevations, we've showed and on the 3D drawing, you'll see where there's a lot of this grill everywhere. And it's part of the top on the parapets, we're using the grill. On the stairways, we're using the grill. On the stairways, we've got this, we've got that perforated metal as well as the tube steel.
Mhm.
On the around the south deck on the third level, it's mainly the tube steel.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a mix.
Okay, great. And then I think just one other question. So this big barn roof, the elevator in this corner here that's got the cedar cladding on the west side, that's your elevator volume. And you're saying that you need the height of this roof to fit the elevator tower in there and still get your expressive roof above that.
Yes. We've got,
I mean, you have windows shown in the corner, but those are just to keep the pattern of the windows.
that is right. The
you'd see
elevators.
tower through you'd see the tower in those corner windows.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, awesome. I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you.
All right, Ron, any questions?
Yeah, actually a couple. Lars stole one of my questions there with the blank door on the front. So that is still going to be addressed with something to make it look more interesting anyway, I guess?
Absolutely. It's going to look great.
Well, whatever it is, okay. The other question I have is on the other end of the building in the corner next to the UPS building. What is that? Yes, in the corner.
That is the UPS building.
That is the UPS building.
Is that got anything to do with you then?
So that building is part of this property. The only thing we're going to do, and I apologize, we're not showing the windows. The windows and the door will stay exactly the same on the UPS building. We will paint it to match the colors and work with this, and we're going to update the awning.
Well, that has nothing, it's on the property, so the owners will own it, but will it still be another owner?
It'll be
Proprietor?
a tenant within the building. Yeah.
So it won't have really anything to do with the current livery, right?
No.
Okay, that's fine. One thing that I really like here that you're doing is incorporating the history of Sebastopol into this building. They did that a little bit with the Barlow, but frankly, hardly anybody in this town have any idea why they named it the Barlow, which is part of the history. There's very little knowledge out there in town. And I would really hope that incorporated, besides the photograph, you can kind of display a little local history here. If you can dig up any other photographs or anything else of what it used to be, I think that's important for Sebastopol. Another thing would be the train history, but there's nothing besides the depot about that. We don't really have much history in Sebastopol. We do, but it's not developed into anything very much, with the exception of the Barlow. You probably don't know, but I own the Barlow house, and virtually nobody in this town knew the Barlows built it, and I bought it from the last Barlow. It's amazing how history gets lost in a small town like that, like this. And I'm really thrilled with the fact you're incorporating a little history. I love the design, by the way.
Thank
So
you.
anyway, all good for me.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ron. Christine, I see that you've joined us, but you are muted. Do you have any questions of our applicant?
Christine, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
There she is.
Am
Hey,
I
Christine.
unmuted? Am I unmuted?
You
We can
are.
hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I'm entering a late.
That's right.
So,
We're glad you're here.
I'm gonna ask a question that you probably have already answered. The gray material that I'm seeing on the facades, what is that? Is that stucco?
On the Christine, this is Grace. On the up on the top levels and on the second level, the gray is stucco.
Okay.
Just to clarify, on the base of the brick where we have the columns, all those things that look, that's still the concrete, and it will just be painted.
That's the existing concrete.
Yes. Most of them, some of them are new to match the existing.
Okay, and then the other question I had was, I can do this. This structure here. I'm sorry, you probably answered these questions, but I just got in here late. Is this a metal? What is the material?
Where are we talking at?
Where are you looking, Christine?
Okay, sorry. I appear to be scrolling onto it, but not for you. It's on the upper level, the like trellis kind of arching.
Yeah.
That.
It is a metal frame that is part of a trellis. And what, Christine, just to clarify, what we are showing this for you so that you understand how our landscape is going to be incorporated here. And we're going to present our landscape, including that trellis and the plants and everything that will be from it at a later date. But that is a trellis that, a metal that will hang plants will just kind of be draped through it so that it'll really feel like you're in and under a garden, kind of this plants should be all around you. We're just kind of in this image, just giving you a little sense of that there's going to be plants on that, the vines and things growing on that trellis. So, but it through at least half the year, it should be really full. And then during other parts, you'll be able to see through. Does that make sense?
Okay,
But it's a metal trellis.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So on this wood part of the structure, yes. What are you trying to depict on the top there? Is that like a sheet roofing? What is that?
Oh, the very top. Yeah, we're just putting a single ply membrane roofing on the top. And so you're gonna have a metal flashing edge to finish off that. And then you've got your cedar fascia board, and then the large heavy timber members that are underneath it. And so all of fascia and the metal, all of that's going to be cedar. And then we've got your cedar siding. But what's showing up there is just kind of a single ply membrane that's going to be up on top. You will also have solar panels on top.
You have 2 layers of the roof there. Is that part of this whole trying to get under the height thing?
That is correct. We've dropped. So we don't have the volume inside in that enclosed area on the third. We've dropped the entire roof. So the ceiling is flat inside, and that keeps us under that 15%. So we've kept the edges up so that we still kind of create this floating roof, and that angle that we feel like is extremely important to this design. But we've kept it flat, and then that kind of creates part of the parapet around. the mechanical space.
Okay, so if you go back to the prior, not that, the sort of sketch up that.
Yeah.
Because this roof of here, it looks like it's sloping from the back. You move your cursor to the left and down, but is it actually flat in there? What's going on with that? That looks like it's sloping from that high point down to there to a low point, and then that other part is, it's kind of hard to follow exactly what's happening there.
Well, and I don't know if it's just an illusion or optical illusion, but what that section may tell you, but just you can leave it where that is and I can explain what's happening, or we can look at this section. So the slope that the continuous slope is from here down all the way back to this point. So the area that you're referencing that's inside is basically flat. This area is flat, but there's going to have to be a small slope just for drainage. So there's going to be at least a 1/4 inch per foot just to get, just so water doesn't stand. But in all practical purposes, it's flat, and it's under, and all that area is under the 40 feet requirement.
And
Okay, because it appears to have quite a bit of slope if you from this, where you've got your cursor, from that depiction right there.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the
There's
section.
not, it's flat. We can, if we want to look at the section, we can kind of, that's where it's. So,
Okay, and then one more quick question, and I apologize, you probably answered this, I'm just got delayed. So if you go back to your what do you want to call it, that? This, above the livery, what is that? Is that an awning? So you've got the livery and there, right there.
that is a
What is
trellis that will cover that area, and those are actually solar panels. So
Oh,
again,
those are solar panels.
yes, and so this trellis is actually part of our landscape package, and we would love to have your comments on it, and it will be part of the package, the landscape package that's going to be presented along with the exterior lighting and the signage package. We've just shown it all here so that you really get a sense of how this building's going to come together. But and so that's just the same. It's a metal frame, and it will have solar panels on top, and that gives us some kind of protection below for additional seating and for comfort.
Grace, you might want to mention, we're looking at the Lumos solar panels that are, kind of see-through. They're a really lovely solar panel.
Yes, it is a transparent panel. It's not the typical one that you would see up on top of on a roof. It won't be the same one that's on top of this roof on the top. It's a different. Yes. Thank you, Becca.
All right.
So I'm not quite following what you're saying, but so these two trellises are not part of this design review. You're saying you're submitting them later, but they're just drawn on here?
Yeah. Go ahead, Alan.
Sorry, I was just going to touch on this topic. So the applicant is going to submit the, so this is essentially a reference drawing. They're going to submit the landscape plan, lighting details, and the, oh my God, I'm forgetting something, signage as a separate deferred submittal. So right now, these are just kind of references to show kind of the bigger picture at this time. And those deferred submittals will return back to the board.
It's just that they seem like a fairly substantial part of the facade elevation on that corner to not be considered part of the review today, in my view.
Well, as far as we're concerned, this is Grace again. As far as we're concerned, we feel like that the building stands on its own without these, and we feel like these are very complementary of the building and work with this building. So these are how we want these to look, but we just don't have, we've just kind of had them as part of the landscape package.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any additional questions, Christine?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Now, just to comment on those, we were looking at an elevation from up above, so they're very prominent on this particular elevation, but looking at it from the street, you're not going to see hardly any of that. So I don't think it's that relevant compared to the elevation we were looking at there, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions of our applicant? All right, I'm not hearing any. So why don't we bring it back to the board? Thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
And let's chat amongst ourselves here. Ron, what are your initial thoughts on this?
What a great improvement. Wherever that the inspiration came from, I like this building a lot. I really have no criticism whatsoever on this thing. I think it's a great improvement. I don't know what else I could say. I like it. I like the fact, like I said before, that you're trying to incorporate a little Sebastopol history into this. I'm not real crazy over the charcoal gray color, but I wasn't before, but that's okay with me if you think that works okay. I can't criticize this thing at all. I like it.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Christine, how about you?
I'm going to hold back on my comments for a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Lars, what do you think?
Well, I think that I still think that it's a really exciting program. I think just the sense of what could be happening in this space once we're allowed to go into a space like this again. I think it'll be really, it'll be really lively. There'll be a lot going on. The different public spaces are really nice inside and especially outside up above. I think adding this music venue ideas is pretty exciting. So I think programmatically and then adding a workspace and having another way for people to be in there, I think is great. I think the alley section with the stair is just much more inviting than it was before, and that feels nice. And certainly keeping the mural is we've all liked that, and I think that's great. And that just feels like not just a back stair that I'd be scared to go in, but I'd actually run up there and go check out what's happening upstairs. So that I think that's great. And I think the kind of scale of the garage door openings works really nicely, like both with the kind of historic livery idea and just the storefronts in town, kind of down Main Street. It's not too, it feels bigger than maybe those are, but not overscaled. So I think all of those are just really nice improvements for sure. So the whole question we were talking about with the corner was not meant to be like you should enter at the corner. That's not at all what I was referring to. Like architecturally or urbanistically, the corner is super important on any project. And you look at the other, not that there's a parking lot across one way, but the other two buildings across have a strong corner, right? Their building is right up at the corner. So to me, that's still not here. And you guys gave a pretty big explanation about why you did that, and yet I don't think that was a very convincing explanation. But I think what you've done with the other two, with the kind of the two bigger entrance pieces, I think is strong. So that's I'm not designing the building, so that's your choice. That's fine. I think it works pretty well. The little bases, the little gray pilaster bases, I think are a big mistake. I think they're all, when I see those, all I think of is the building that's there now. And I just wish you could get rid of those. And if you can't get rid of them, actually don't paint them gray, like paint them red, brick color so they disappear. Or they're not part of the stucco up above, they're part of the column, right? They're part of that opening. So to me, that should really soften, and it would be much, much better. And then, let's see, the gray kind of stair tower. I think the gray stucco is okay when it's very, very recessed, like you have in this picture we're looking at still on the screen, like back there on the corner, it's just this little accent behind a trellis, behind the brick, like that's fine to me. But the view from that view is just really bizarre. I just don't, it doesn't hold with the rest of the building. It doesn't have a character in and of itself. You referred to like a water tower, Sonoma County water tower in one of your narratives, and it doesn't bring to mind that at all. Water towers, just by nature of having wood siding, have a level of detail and scale. This is a very strange looking kind of, I don't know, slightly corporate thing you'd see in West Santa Rosa or something, and it doesn't fit at all with it. Maybe it just needs a lot more detail. That soffit up above is just like this looming big thing. Just so I don't think that works very well at all. So those are kind of my pros and cons. I think overall, being inspired by something from the past is a great, starting point. And then how do you transform it, right? How do you transform it? How do you abstract it? How do you bring it into today's time? And I think you've done that fairly well. The big giant light fixtures to me don't do it at all. That's like this weird vestige from somewhere in the past. But the forms, I think you've done a nice job of kind of bringing something from the past and bringing it into today's time. The brick does it fairly well. The wood structure does it, more so. I think that the kind of angled struts and all that could even be more articulated and a little more refined. And then I think we have actually, to touch on that roof thing for a moment, I think that's something we as a board should really look at. It's except the exceptions in the code are pretty small scale kind of ideas, right? Like elevator tower, cooling, little cupola or stuff like that. Like this is a big, massive roof. And if you're gonna do the big massive roof, dropping that little section in the middle of the roof just to meet this code requirement to me makes zero sense. It's just making your building cost more, but I'm not gonna see that difference up there. It has no perceptual difference to the public, but does that become the precedent we don't wanna set as a board because it's over that 15%? Like there's something about that whole kind of argument is a little specious, I guess is the word. But I'll leave it at that for now. I appreciate very much what you guys have done, what you've put into this. I know you have a lot of different people on the team. Jen's come in, Sevenfold's come in. Like you brought in some really good folks to add to what you have, and you're really thinking it through and trying to make it an exciting place in our town. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you for all your efforts.
Christine, you want to go now or?
No, I'll give it a go. First of all, I think it's a huge improvement over the last submittal. But I think that it's enough of a change that we need to consider this as, even though it's not a new submittal, but it is kind of a new submittal. So to massage it around a little bit here. I have to agree with Lars about those pilasters on the ground level. They, I know that they're there because they're there, but if it was, the building is basically a redo, and so they look like a mistake. I mean, I understand why they're there, but they don't make sense with what the new building is to me. Seems like they should maybe get toned into the brick color or maybe get some brick facade on them or something to blend it in, because they don't make any sense. I mean, anybody approaching this building now that didn't know that they were there as part of that other building, it just wouldn't make any sense. And then if we go to the Main Street elevation, we could switch the drawing. Can we switch the drawing to the Main Street elevation?
Lars, I think you currently have it. If you want, I can take over.
Oh, what
Have
happened?
it? No.
If you want, I can take over, Lars, if that's easier.
I wasn't doing anything. I didn't touch anything.
Oh, sorry, I meant Ted.
Oh, no, that's okay. Maybe I dropped off. I'm not really sure what happened. I kind of went dead there
Yeah.
for a minute. I was listening to Christine and then nothing.
Yes.
Can we switch the drawing to the Main Street elevation, Ted?
Sure.
Okay.
You want it in the model form or here?
Here, this is fine. Just
All right.
turn it.
Oh.
We were there when Lars was talking.
Oh, you want the model shot, right?
Model shot on the other elevation.
Okay, coming.
The Main Street elevation. We're looking at the corner right now.
How about that?
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so we're talking about this, being reminiscent of something historic, but I just don't see that with that gray tower. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's supposed to look like a water tower. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think there was a reference to that before, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing water tower. I'm
It's
just
not
seeing
intended to look like a water tower. It's just we had it was.
Kind of
But I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, it looks like we've got this sort of, I don't want to say mimicking, it's not the right word, in the brick part of an older kind of a style of a building that's an old building that would be built like that. And then that's just standing there looking like a new modern kind of a Larry Simons kind of like one of those buildings down on Stony Point.
Mhm.
It just doesn't look like it belongs there to me. It looks like it's part of something else. And I mean, I'm not the designer. I'm just saying I'm looking at that and I'm saying, what's that doing up there? Is that a different building? Is that part of the same design? It's got to be something different. It just is modern while the rest is trying to mimic something older and historic.
Yeah.
So, and then if we switch around to the Burnett Street, there we go. I really like that entry coming underneath the brick and going into the stairwell. I think that is, I think that's going to be very pleasant. But again, we've got this big, massive towering structure over at the wood structure. It seems like it's too big and bulky and heavy and different. Again, it doesn't seem like it belongs to me. So I feel that those two elements that I just described are somehow not part of the design. They're something else. Particularly that tower. At least the wood
This
thing
one.
is, you would have the mixture of brick and wood if you're looking at buildings in a historical sense. But that tower thing that just reminds me of those Larry Simons buildings over on Stony Point. It's the first thing I thought when I saw those.
Yeah.
And I think that these trellises are, I think that they're an essential part of the design. I completely disagree with Ron. I think that they're prominent and you'll see them. So my feeling about this design, to sum it up, is I think it's a great improvement over what you had before. And I really, really would like to see this, project be approved and move forward. I think it's going to be great for downtown. But I would encourage, looking a little bit more at softening those two large elements I just described and those existing pilaster pop-out things. I mean, those things don't even need to be there. Could you just cut them off? Could you just jackhammer them off and get them out of there and just have brick? I mean, they're not serving any purpose. They were just part of the original Bob Anderson design from that building way back when. So I guess what I'm saying is I really like this design. I think you guys are doing a great job, but I feel that this is a new, it's a completely different from what we had before. And I think we should discuss maybe making some adjustments here and coming back like one more iteration of kind of getting responses, because it's not like we revised the existing building. This looks like something completely different and a big improvement. But again, when we're standing there on the corner, those two trellises, I think that they're an essential part of the design. I don't want them to be overlooked at this point in time either.
Yeah.
So those are my initial thoughts on it. But
Right.
I really, like I'm saying, I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and I would really love to see this project moving forward and coming to fruition. No question about it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree with most of what Christine just said. So the one sort of the piece that doesn't belong, I think, to me is this. I really love what you've done with the rest of the building. I like the strong emphasis on the entries. I think that was one of my comments at the beginning. I love these big entry portals. I might think about actually taking signage away from the corner and, placing it here, hand painting it on the brick or something like that. But I know we're not really reviewing signage. And I think in terms of composition, when you just look at this really works for me. And this little shot of a different material, I think works. I agree with Christine that it would look very different if these trellis structures weren't here. So I do think they're an integral part of it. I like the big wood soaring roof. I agree with Lars that it seems a little silly to drop a section of it just to meet a 15% requirement for the height. I think I'd rather see the big soaring roof on the interior, unless you need it for mechanical space. So I don't know how we deal with that from a code standpoint and height limit standpoint, but it does seem like we're sort of dancing around the obvious. And one of the reasons I think the big wood soaring roof is working for me is that this continuation of the material inside, I think, really helps tie that together, as if this thing is something that penetrates through, and that the brick facade is almost kind of a remnant of a past time, which is fine with me.
Mm.
So I echo all the previous very positive comments. I think this is going to be a great thing for downtown. I really like the direction it's gone. That is just sort of a glaringly blank wall right now that I think everybody pointed out. And if there's one thing I could pick to work on, it is this, because it is the piece that doesn't belong. So that's my feeling in a nutshell. Yeah. And I think that programmatically, I think it's a very exciting place. The co-working on the second floor, the open spaces, the tenants all kind of scattered around. It's pretty cool. It's very cool.
I think you guys are starting to convince me the water tower doesn't fit either.
It's a little wacky up there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, looking at it more deeply, you guys are convincing me. I think I was just so thrilled with the whole concept. I was mainly being concerned about the color at this particular time. I don't know what could be, that's whatever function that, let's call that the water tower, okay?
Yeah.
For lack of anything. What could be done to make that fit in with the rest of the design? Could it be just a matter of surface materials? If that was brick or wood or something else, would that be enough without changing the entire structure? I mean, what could be done with that particular part? Now, if you do look at the elevation though of this, whatever you want to call rendering here, that's not a street level. You wouldn't see that. You would see it from the street, but we're looking at it about probably 15, 20 feet in the air, which nobody will see. So it won't be quite as obvious as that.
Yeah, you are seeing more of it. you're going to see, you will see this upper section for sure.
Upper section, the lower section will be pretty marginal.
Yeah.
What would anybody suggest to tone that down or make it fit in with the rest of the structure that make us all happy without spending millions of dollars?
Yeah.
Idea?
Well, I think one of the reasons, it's very big and heavy right now. So, you might be able to thin it out. I mean, you kind of have to play with it and see what ends up looking good. And maybe you make some, cohesive form out of it rather than this kind of
Huge block.
Yeah, this sort of thing might look interesting on a very contemporary building. This unusual asymmetric thing happening might be very interesting on a very different building. But this building, has kind of traditional rhythms to it, and then you get this wacky thing just kind of sitting there that it just looks a little odd. So. And the
Maybe
concrete.
Maybe for the purposes of symmetry, because you've got this Burnett elevation with the big wood. Maybe you come around the corner and you have something similar, because there's too many different styles. I mean, we've got 3 different styles going on here, kind of lumped together in one building.
Yeah.
It just seems too much. It's too much.
Yeah, and it's all just getting kind of wacky right there.
Yeah, but you've got this idea with the brick, and then you've got this wood element that's coming over, and maybe if the wood was balanced, so that the whole thing has this symmetry with the wood at each end on the 2 elevations, because that's what you're going to experience, the 2 street elevations.
It's not the material.
Maybe
Not the material. It's the scale. There's just the scale of that element is just large, too large without any of the texture of the brick or the wood. Like it feels to me like it has to, recede, and by breaking down the scale of what that is, if it's a giant window there, like break that down or give some, put some reglets at the very least on the stucco, like. It just has a very heavy, large scale feeling, and that's out of character with the rest. So I don't think just cladding it in different material is going to make that work.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a piece of a ship got plopped in here. Yeah.
But see, there's I think this is the kind of thing that it's up to the architects, to the designers, the group, to figure out how to make that better. It's not up to us per se.
No, yeah. And I also love I love the historic rallying point that leads to the thematic spaces, the stables, the rafters. I mean, that's all really kind of fun stuff that I think is very experiential. And so I really appreciate that thinking too. So I guess that brings us to the question of where do we want to go with this? Do we want to continue this and encourage some additional exploration on a number of things? And the little concrete plinths, on one hand, I agree, I'd love to see them go, but on the other hand, they're not killing me. So if they have to stay, I can survive that.
They're killing me, Ted.
They're killing Lars, and Christine's not a big fan.
they're killing me too.
Oh, they're killing me. All right, I'm outvoted.
I'll agree with Ted on this one. They don't bother me at all. I think they kind of tie it to the ground. So that doesn't bother me. The water tower does, but I'm sure not going to vote against this or suggest a major change on the bun feet, if you want to call them that.
All right.
Well, and then what about this whole roof height issue? I don't know if we want Alan to weigh in on that too, or it just seems like we either say no, it's too high, it's not just a little elevated tower, cupola, etc. It's actually this giant roof, which to me is not actually in keeping with the spirit of the code. So, but there is that little passage about if we like it aesthetically or if we think it's important, we could say yes. Like, so if that's where we're going, why, unless the architects really want to have that drop roof, doesn't seem, necessary. So I don't know, what should we do about that?
Would it be right- oh, sorry.
Alan, what are your thoughts on that?
So Carrie and I had discussed this when it first came in, because initially it was the full raised roof. However, when we were reviewing it, we were reading the section over several times, and it's defined as being, I think, elements. So the thought was, if it's the entire roof that's going above the height limit, that's not really an element of the building when you're looking at it in terms of what the elements are or the features. So it became kind of this question of how do we make this work within what the intent of the code is. And this was kind of the solution that the applicant had proposed, and we felt met the spirit of that exception or that code section. If they did want it to be the fully raised roof, we believe that would need a variance through the planning commission.
It would. Okay.
And part of the concern was that, we're issuing this 5 to 10 foot exception for the roof, that could create a precedent for essentially it's no longer features the entire roof level that's being increased.
Yeah.
So that was just the thought process behind that.
Okay.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So,
Well, my feelings is I feel like we need to have another round with this. I think we have enough little tweaks to do on it, and I think it's worth spending the extra time because it's going to be such a substantial element in downtown, and I think it's going in a very good direction. So I would personally like to see it continued one more time to work on these item areas that we've discussed.
Yeah, and I support a continuance as well. Is everybody else on board with that?
I think,
I am. I think what we're all having a problem is with the water tower element of the structure. Frankly, I like the bun feet myself, but I wouldn't change that. But anyway, but the elevator, the water tower, for lack of a better word, let's see what they can do with that as a second thought without delaying this forever. But I think that's the only real thing here that we should postpone this for is that particular element, not anything else. As far as the ceiling goes, I don't know. But let's deal strictly with the water tower.
I was going to say.
Well, I think we can do more work on those plinths. Let's just let them, resubmit it with these other suggestions or not. That's my feeling.
Right. Yeah, they can take off.
I mean, I want to let you know that I want to approve this project. Like I'm like going towards wanting to do it. I just feel when you're working on design, and I've worked on enough design, the more you kind of have a little bit of time to think about it and take in suggestions and stuff, you just improve it. And I think it would be worth one more round to think about these things, everything that we suggested. Maybe you don't change anything else, maybe you do, but, just to kind of absorb the information that we're presenting, see what you want to do with it. And let's just give it one more, massaging round so that we can approve it in the next meeting. It's my feeling.
Yeah, Lars?
I was just going to say we could then review and approve the landscape package and the trellises as part of that.
Yeah.
I think it's an important part of it. I think we need to be looking at those at the same time.
I agree.
But by saying it again, I think it's a lovely project. I think you guys did a great job. So
I think so too. Yeah.
Can I say something? Is that appropriate?
Sure.
So I'm not sure that, we've already delayed this project so long. And I'm curious if there's any possible way to do a conditional approval, because we can't keep going. We can't do this anymore. You know, it's costing us a lot of money, and we're very happy to make changes. You know, but delaying more than we need to is a real hardship for us. And I just want to put that out there.
All right. We appreciate that.
You know, I think I agree with her here. I mean, to delay this till we get the landscape and everything else is just going to cost them money and might jeopardize the entire project. We're going too far here as far as restrictions. We all like the building. The details can come later. There should be some thought with the water tower aspects, but let's don't drag this out. That's not right. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to chime in on that one more time.
Yeah.
This is the first time, I don't know about any delays. It's been a long time since we looked at the last version, but this is the first time we are seeing this.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think it's a delay. You know, we're looking at a project, we're making comments on a project we have not seen before because this is so substantially different from the last one. And as I said, I suggested let's give it a little bit, you know, one more tweak so that we can approve it. I mean, I appreciate the cost of construction and the whole design process. That's what I do for a living. But I'm saying this is the first time I'm seeing this. So I'm not seeing this design review process as a delay.
Yeah, I don't see a continuance as a particularly onerous thing for a project of this significance.
Well, how long would that be?
It could be into the next meeting if we have. I mean, it could be 2 weeks if we have space on our next meeting agenda, and we probably do.
I just don't want this to go on until next year, okay?
Yeah.
That's my concern, okay?
Yeah.
I'm all for another meeting, but I just don't want to throw bricks and stones at this thing.
Yeah.
Because this is a local project. This is not CVS, deep pocket stuff. I think the water tower needs some help, but we can't delay this just for small things, okay?
Yeah.
May I offer something? This is Grace. Is there a way that if we agree to, for instance, make the change, the color on the base of these concrete pieces, let the majority of this be approved and let the water tower come back as that element itself be presented, updated with when the landscape comes through, so that we can actually move forward in some areas, but we separate that kind of piece. And as we've kind of done with the trellises, and let that be presented to you again. So it's kind of split. Since that's the piece that you guys are focusing on, that water tower, kind of let everything else move forward.
Alan, that's probably a question for you. Is that possible?
So I think we could do that by adding a condition of approval saying that the water tower, you know, I think I have a section saying the landscape elements, the lighting, and those are returning as a deferred submittal.
Mm-hmm.
We can add another one saying that the final details on the water tower element shall return to the board prior to an issuance of a building permit.
So I don't quite get that. I mean, it's not landscape, it's not lighting, it's not signage, it's a chunk of the building. So if I were the architect, I would and it was continued, I would walk away from this and I would start, you know, finalizing my building permit package for, you know, 85% of the building or whatever it is. And then I would present the last bit, and then I would put that into my package and submit it for permit. They're not going to submit for building permit without this section of the building.
Yeah.
So it's a very different element than, you know, a signage or something like that.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we could do is, and this depends on Grace's schedule as well, we could continue to a date certain, which I think the next meeting is the 2nd, and I don't think there'd be enough time to put it on that agenda with the Thanksgiving week in between. But we could put it on the December 16th meeting if that, you know, Grace, if you think you have enough time to make those adjustments.
We will make them.
Is there, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said the second in 2 weeks. Is that right? I mean, is the reason why we wouldn't be able to get on that agenda us or on your end?
It would be on my end. Essentially, the agenda for it is due next Tuesday. So that means staff reports, revisions, plans, routing, sending it to the board members.
When, if to get on the December 16th, when do I need to get the design to you, the updated design?
So ideally, it would be by December 9th would be the latest I could take it.
Is there any way we could have a special meeting like we are tomorrow? Does it have to be on Wednesday?
That's another possibility if it works for the board.
We've done it before. I just want to get this project going.
We would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it's another possibility if that works within the applicant's time frame and the board's.
Could we do a December 9th meeting, Wednesday the 9th, and get the design to you by the 1st?
I think that would work.
Good.
Does that work for our applicant? Grace, does that work for you?
Well, yeah, we will do what we can. Absolutely. So that means getting you updated. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Draw
I would.
And plans to you by the 1st. Is that right?
Correct.
And so that is basically 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today.
More or less.
Two-
Yeah.
2 weeks from yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 weeks from yesterday. All right. That'd be amazing if you guys can do a special one for that. That we'd appreciate it. We will do everything to get that to you by then.
Christine, Lars, Ron, are you up for a special meeting?
Can we cancel the meeting on the 16th then?
Let me take a quick look. I think that meeting's looking empty at this moment.
I'm partly being facetious, but
You guys have had a lot of special meetings these last 2 months. So let me take a quick
not
look.
just specially date, but like this project took a lot, many hours to review, so
Yeah.
just saying. And the one tomorrow has been taking lots of time.
Yeah. So I think realistically, eyeballing it this time, I'm not making any promises, but it's pretty unlikely that we're going to have a meeting on the December 16th,
Okay. So then,
unless we continue items.
so we could do the 9th then. That's fine. That works for me.
All right, somebody want to craft a motion for continuance to date certain the 9th?
Sure, I'll move that we continue this application specifically to look at the quote unquote water tower element and anything else the applicant wants to bring forward as changes. We can do at that time as well.
Sounds good. We have a motion. How about a second?
I'll second.
Hey, wait. I have
Oh.
some comments.
Uh-oh.
Okay, how about
I
some
would
discussion on the
also like-
motion?
Slow down, horseman.
Well, no,
No.
you do a second to the motion and then you have discussion, Chris.
And then we have discussion. So we're discussing now. We're not voting yet.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second. Now, discussion. Christine.
I would also like to include in this the consideration of those pilaster bases and the trellis elements that go with the landscaping. At least some more detail and definition about those. It's part of this
All right.
package.
All
So we're
right,
going to talk about water tower. We're going to talk about water tower, pilaster bases, and trellis elements.
All right, so we have essentially a friendly amendment. Are you willing to add that to your motion?
So the trellises are part of a landscape package. So if the applicant wants to bring forward that package, I think we'll review it at that time too. I didn't want to put that in there because maybe they're not ready to, they were talking about it as a deferred submittal as it was. the column bases to me, or, that was my general comment. They could make other changes if they want, but it seemed to me the main thing was to talk about that one piece. But Christine, I'm happy to amend my motion if that's what you want.
I would argue that those trellis elements are a significant part of the whole structure, regardless of the landscaping. Landscaping is plant in my book. I mean, these are part of the building. They're attached to the building. They're not outside of the building in a garden or separate.
We
So
can
that's
bring those,
why-
we can
Yeah, I
bring,
think you can.
we can bring
Okay.
the trellises forward to this.
Okay,
Sounds great. Thanks, Grace.
all right.
All right.
You
So
want
we
me to-
now we have an amended motion to include the plinths and the trellis elements. Can we get a second on the amended
Okay.
motion?
I'll second it.
No, you made it.
Oh, I
Well,
thought
no-
it was a modified Lars. I thought it was a modified Lars.
I,
Not a modified Lars.
it,
Okay.
no, it's a modified Lars motion.
So I can modify it. I
Yes.
modify it as Christine stated, and therefore Christine can second it.
Yep. So you accepted
Yeah.
Christine's friendly amendment.
Yes.
So now we have amended
But it
motion.
became Lars's amendment because he accepted it and he amended, and then I'm seconding it.
So there we go. So now we have an amended
Okay.
motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
I,
All opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much, Grace and team. We appreciate your work on this, and we look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Alan, anything else?
That's it for today.
That's it for today. So we will adjourn until, tomorrow.
At 3 p.m.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
See you tomorrow.